Morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today, along with my colleagues, Alki Thompson and Vern Schellinger. We are here to answer your job search questions. And before we get going, I want to let you know that I actually am going to be hosting a free webinar on December 18th. I'm putting the link in the chat here. It's going to be on how to create a recruiter-friendly resume and LinkedIn profile. All right, so it's an hour and a half long on the December 18th at 3:30 Eastern. And it's on Eventbrite, and I posted it on LinkedIn. So feel free to grab the link and share with your friends. And we got 25 slots. So happy to have anyone who would like to join us. So start with that. Okay. So who has a job search question for us this morning? Anything from getting noticed to interviewing, networking, whatever's going on. Or if anybody wants to just share an update about their search. Deborah.
Yeah, so good morning. It's good to be back after Thanksgiving. So I have a couple things on my mind, and I'll start with the first one. I have done a lot of networking. Networking is easy for me, like reaching out to people. But what I'm thinking about is I have these great conversations, but they're not leading to finding jobs or job opportunities. And so I'm trying to figure out, as I'm networking and using my time, how can I be more strategic about doing things either in networking or other things that are leading to me finding opportunities, like finding positions.
Right. So and I'll kick off here, and Vern and Alki, please, chime in. Yeah. It all starts with who you're targeting, right? Which fish ponds are you swimming in? Before you get to the conversation and what you say, which is a very, very important, it's who are you actually networking with? And I'm not sure, Deborah, if you've heard or others have heard on this call that I've shared a little kind of formula or philosophy that I have around that. I call it the family tree of networking. And it's twins, siblings, first cousins, and second cousins. Okay. I'm actually going to pull up a quick little deck for you guys. It's a visual that you can use. But it really has to do with maximizing your networking efforts so that you can really target the people that you need to be targeting. So for example, where you wouldn't, this is obvious, right? But where you're not going to be targeting is necessarily like your next door neighbor, right? Now your next door neighbor might have a job for you, but the chances are, right? That's obviously not going to be the best use of your time. But when you are prioritizing your network, let me go ahead and share this with you. It's very, very helpful to think about things in terms of relationships and which relationships are going to yield the most fruit. All right. So here's a little portion of this deck. And here's kind of how it looks. All right. So when you think about your family, right, network, there are basically two groups of people that you want it to be in there. Number one, people who know you, like you, and trust you. So that's the relationship side of things. All right. This is the people you have built a relationship with on some level. And then secondly, the people who get what you do or want to do. So it's two different things. So one is relational, one is professional, and the ideal is when they merge. So here's kind of how it looks. So real fast. So I have twin siblings, first cousins, and second cousins. And this one we're going to start with is the people who know you, like you, trust you. So these are the people, the twins are the ones who know you by voice, right? They're going to be the people who dance at your wedding, who help you move. They're on speed. Like you just have to just say your voice and you don't have to say your name, right? And they know who you are. Siblings are similar, but these are people who certainly know, hey, it's Deborah, right? These are people who still really, really care for you. The twins and the siblings are going to be your biggest champions. These are the people who right now in your life they know you're looking for a job. Regardless of what they do, they've got you top of mind. They hear of anything that's even related, they're going to throw it your way. Your first cousins are what I call, actually, Vern calls them a dormant relationship. So people who have been in your past, could be 25 years ago, could be 2 years ago. You're not really in touch with them, but they definitely know who you are. It's a warm connection. It could be the blast from the past, easily resurrectable. And the second cousins are people who are past acquaintances. Maybe you're friendly, but you're not close. Maybe you met them a long time ago. These last two categories are people who are willing to help you. They're not your champions, but they're willing to if you make an outreach. Okay. then this next one is going to be this next category, the people who get what you do or want to do. So the twins in this category are the people who do what you do. They are your best referral source because they are hearing about opportunities that are not right for them, but they're right for you. Okay, so they're your competimates, if you will. Okay, they're people who are absolutely in your field. Your siblings are people who do something similar to what you do, and then so forth and so on. First cousins understand what you do, and second cousins are familiar with what you do. And the point here is that any of these people could be interesting to network with, but my recommendation is always try to start focusing on the people who, we have a kitty cat in the background somewhere.
We do.
So you want to be focusing on as much as possible the people who are closest to what you do. They're the people who are going to have the best kind of opportunities. Now, it doesn't just have to be people who exactly do what you do. Of course, it could be a hiring manager, right? But it's the people who are closest to your sphere. They're obviously going to hear about things more closely. And so I gave an example. Let's say a person is a digital marketer, right? Another digital marketer is going to be their twin. Somebody in marketing communications is going to be a sibling. They're kind of in a similar role. A first cousin might be a public relations professional. And then a second cousin might be a sales professional, right? So you see, they're kind of all in the same sphere, but the closer that you get to what you do, the more likely it is that they're going to be able to help you. And then I also have one that goes by industry. So for some of you, you are industry or mission focused. So for those of you who are, same thing. Let's just say that your sector is animal welfare nonprofits. So you wouldn't want to be you want to be networking with people at the World Wildlife Fund, right? As opposed to somebody who's just in a general environmental nonprofit like the Ocean Conservancy, okay? Or a first cousin is somebody who's anybody in the nonprofit sector, and a second cousin, someone's like a veterinarian. How well is a veterinarian going to get you a job in an animal welfare nonprofit? Maybe not, but I wanted you to see kind of the scope here, right? And then the last thing I'll do is show you this concept. So I believe that the best networking intersection are the people who know you, right? The twins, and the people who get you. The people who are your champions and are the people who get what you do. Why? Because they really want to help you and they're best capable of helping you. And the next best intersection to me is the people who know you, siblings and first cousins, the people who get you, twins, meaning to see the commonality here, the people who get what you do are going to be really your best intersection because these people are going to be willing to help you, but they're best capable. So they want two people, willing two people, and this is where I would focus. All right. So in your case, Deborah, I know we've talked about the sector that you come from, right? So the folks who are in that sort of search world and the recruiting world and what have you, of course, are going to know about things more than, let's say, somebody who's in a biotech firm, obviously. And I know that that's kind of obvious. And yet I think sometimes we sort of scattershot our networking so much. It's just all over the place. We tell everybody that we're looking for a job, which is not a bad thing. Tell somebody on the bus, tell your next door neighbor, tell the person at the gym or church. That's fine. But when you're concentrating your daily efforts, I really want to encourage you to think about the people who can help you the best, right? So that would be my little speech. So I haven't done one of these little deck presentations in a while, but I thought since you asked the question, I had it handy. All right, Deborah, was that helpful?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
The other thing, Deborah, that I assume, but I don't want to assume anything, is your message clear to anyone you're networking with in terms of what the agenda is for the conversation? This is my profession and I'm in the job search process. I'm looking for any, connections, leads that you can, provide to me, any information you can provide to me so that it's clear to them that, when you meet that's what you really want. Now, again, you should always be mindful, they're giving you their time and, and in that conversation is if you discover anything that you can give back to them or help them in some way, certainly do that. That just strengthens the relationship. So that would be one other thing to make sure you're thinking about there.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to let the contact and networking experts speak first, but focusing on what you're asking is basically how, how can you be more effective at networking? And I know since I've been on the call, we talk about networking a lot, and I think that word itself is a catchphrase, but as Shira just demonstrated, there's some more breakdown and strategy to that. And what Vern was just talking about too is utilizing that, your efforts wisely. I think one of the most important things that Shira said that stood out was a funnel, and a laser approach. And I think, as I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I think it just keeps coming back to me that, wow, number one, it's a really competitive job market right now. There's a lot of people looking for jobs right now. So the activities like, applying and posting, applying for jobs and things like that, you still do it, but there's so many people. I think somebody told me the other day that they looked up and there was like 1,500 people who had already applied already. And somebody else said that, they applied, and then the company got back to them and said, well, one of the reasons why, basically, we're not looking at you is because 3,000 people have applied. So it really makes you take a step back to say, okay, let me slow down for a second. What am I doing? How am I spending my time? I'm networking, but before I just start networking, like what are my goals today? What are my objectives? What am I really going after? Like Vern was just talking about too. When I think about the people that I trust and who are in my group, in my family, my twins, especially the people who do what you do, I can't echo that enough, is the people that do what you do are some of the best advocates you can possibly find. But I would say, not just to Deborah, but to the group, as you network, before you hit send or type any email, is to jot down a little, a couple of objectives. When I get this person on the phone, what am I asking them? And it is what I'm asking them to help me with. Are they getting back to me on anything? That I asked them a question that they can get back to me on Tuesday about, or how can I find out right away, there's really nothing here, or that's just a seed and they'll get back to me at some point. Or, when I look at their network, who do they know? Did I find an open job at this particular company, and then I found someone who works there who does what I do, and thus I can just ask them right away, listen, this is what I'm planning to do. I'm looking for a job. I see you guys have this position. And then you ask questions to find out, how close are you a match? Where are they in their search with this job? That way you can kind of take your list and go, okay, this networking person, I called them, they got back to me, there's nothing there, or they'll get back to me tomorrow. But I say you should constantly be looking at the return of what you're doing. And if you judge by that, kind of what you tweak, and this sounds a lot like gibberish, but I'm just thinking in my mind, it's a funnel, and making sure that you're getting some return on the effort that you're doing. And if you're not getting return, you step back and you tweak it to say, okay, what other kind of questions can I be asking when I'm networking, or when I do get this person's time? How can I change what I'm getting from them so that I can check to see if it's being effective or not? And that, again, it sounded like a lot of gibberish, but I'm sure Shira will clean it up for me. It's a focus on the effort and the specificity of your efforts. Take it, Shira.
Yeah, to actually pull, well, thank you. To pull on that thread a little bit in terms of the effort that you're making and the conversation you're having. Sometimes, Deborah, you can have a fruitful conversation and then it doesn't really lead to what you need to lead to. Sometimes that has to do with the follow-up, either on your part or their part. So, for example, at the end of the conversation, you absolutely want to be asking, who in that person's network do they believe you should be connecting with? Okay. So you want not, and might notice how I phrase this, who in the network, not do they know anybody? That's a yes or no question. Who do they know that they believe would be beneficial for you to network with? And that'll make them go, well, maybe John Smith. Okay, great. So who's John? You say? Oh, John's a blah, blah. And you're quickly typing in LinkedIn. What's John's? Is this the profile? And you're fine. So you're focusing in on John. Now, what do you do with that? You got two options. Either you say to your friend, Susie, hey, Susie, this is great. John looks great. Would love an introduction. Would you be open to brokering one? And Susie says, sure, no problem. Now, here's what happens if you go that route. You get off this call, little virtual hug, and Susie goes on with her life. Susie has every intention of helping you, and Susie promptly forgets. Well-meaning, but she forgets, okay? Or in a case like me, I recently did this with somebody on HMM, and we had this whole thing. She found this person in my LinkedIn that I could connect with. She's, the person sent me their resume, blah, 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 all this stuff, ready to go. I completely thought that I had written, and I guess I didn't, because I guess a week or two later, the person follows up and said, oh, did I hear back from the person? And I can't find it in my chat thread. I probably started the process. I even saved their resume and everything. And I probably forgot to hit send. Okay. And my life went on, and I was totally intentional about it. And yet this one little step I forgot. So I had to redo it. The point is that happens. Life happens. So you could do that, which I know is the more proper thing to do, but you could also say, hey, Susie, would it be okay if I reached out to John directly and mentioned your name? That's another option. It's totally legitimate. And if you do it that way, then you would go to LinkedIn, right? Send that person a connection invitation. Hi, Susie recommended that I speak with you, blah, blah, blah. Here, that 300 character, message that you're allowed to send. He said, would love to connect. And then if you don't hear back from John, because John's busy and doesn't check his LinkedIn, then I go circle back with Susie and say, hey, I reached out to John, haven't heard back. Would you now mind, sending an introduction? So you can do a 1-2, but I would start with the proactive one, because you're the one who has the vested interest in meeting with John.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
I agree on that. I like to do that where I can, because the example I'm using, there's something right now where someone said, oh, I want to introduce you to someone, but I need to check first. And
Yeah,
I
that's
followed up
fine.
3 times with the person who's going to introduce me to be like, hey, did you hear from your
Hey.
friend? And she's like, oh, it was in my draft box. Or that it was like, oh, I
Exactly.
haven't heard back. Or it's Thanksgiving. So I realized it's like,
Exactly. Right.
yeah, I've spent a lot of time trying to chase just to get
And but you know what?
introduced.
That, Deborah, is business development. And what Alki said, called it a funnel. I think this is worth sitting here for a minute. I want everybody to really pay attention to this. Whether you know it or not, when you are in job search, you are in sales. I want that to hang in the air for a moment. You are in sales. It's the same equivalent as me or Alki or Vern. We're all in business for ourselves, doing business development, doing sales. We have a funnel. We have all these people that we could be reaching out to. And we recognize that it's only at the bottom of the funnel, the few little people that might actually work with us. But we are always networking. We are always relationship building, because we never know who is going to actually want to work with us at the end of the day. It is not a 1-to-1 ratio. I use this analogy a lot. It's like farming. Okay. I'll say it 1,000 more times if I need to. When the farmer plants the seed, the farmer does not expect that all of the seeds are going to sprout. There's birds, there's wind, and there's rain, right? And everything else. So they plant lots and lots of seeds. And some of them will actually come out and get a harvest. Some. But he plants, or she plants, this many. It's the same with you. Every relationship you have, there's going to be some cultivation. Here's the farming analogy, Deborah. You're cultivating the relationship. You have the call, you got to follow up. You got to sprinkle some water. You got to sprinkle some fertilizer. You can help this thing grow a little bit. Otherwise, the birds and the wind and the rain, AKA that person's distractions, or the technology didn't work, or someone like me, I thought I did it, but I didn't, right? Things happen. You've got to cultivate it. And that's what I think job seekers don't quite realize. They think it's almost like a 1-to-1. It's like, oh, I send the outreach, or, hey, I have the call, and therefore something's going to happen. No, it's a big old funnel, and lots of distractions happen. And so you got to keep on cultivating, but also make sure that you're putting good seed into good soil. That goes back to the who do you network with? Make sure that it's very targeted. That's only one step. Then it's what's your messaging? How are you carry on that conversation? How do you getting the person to refer you somebody, making sure that you properly follow up. There's a lot of steps. It's sales. And I know a lot of us don't like to hear it that way, but it's true. Because we're proactively trying to get people to notice us, which is very different than when they're coming to us. So when Vern or Alfie or I have already existing relationships and someone proactively calls and says, hey, I heard about you, that's a completely different thing. Then there's no funneling. We've already built the relationships, and now someone has heard about us. It's the same thing with you. If you continue to build the relationships, Lord willing, at some point, someone's going to call you and say, hey, Deborah, I heard about you. Somebody in your network referred you. But the only reason why they're going to do that, Deborah, is if they know about you, which means you got to keep building relationships, right? Does that make sense? It's like, it's a whole thing. In fact, speaking of relationships, tomorrow morning, Vern and I are going to be on a joint panel discussion with an organization called Career Confidence. It's a local job search ministry. And I just put the link in the chat for everybody. It's free. Yeah, tomorrow morning from 9 to like 11:30. And it's myself, Vern, and a couple of other colleagues. We're going to be talking about this relationship building, and we're all going to be giving our different perspectives. So you're certainly welcome to join us. Okay. That helpful, Vern?
One last thing is when you do find a good connection and you've had a great networking conversation, it's always appropriate to say, is there anyone, in your network that you think I could connect with? If this person's really been helpful and so forth and so on, ask them that. And they may in fact think of someone, yes, I can connect you to John or who else. So
really quick follow-up to what Cher was saying, to go back to the funnel concept and the relationship concept. There's been a paradigm shift. We're in a shift right now. The more I talk to candidates in the job search, the more I'm realizing, what we three know, and some of you know it too, but it used to be, hey, found a job, let me apply for this job. Somebody's going to get back to me by later today. That's changing to more work. And when Cher is talking about what we do as salespeople in business development, I've been preaching this message to candidates for the last several years. Listen, you've got to recruit yourself. It's not really an industry anymore where you look for a job and somebody's going to get back to you. I mean, if it does, that's a blessing, but it's really becoming like, yeah, candidates, unfortunately, it's more than just putting in the work and then applying for a job. You're going to have to follow up. Why are they ghosting you? Hey, I applied, or, hey, networking contact that I reached out to, I haven't heard back from, like we were just discussing. So for those who attend this call regularly, some of you probably have made the shift, but I encourage you, go ahead and make the shift mentally. The job search it's changed. It's no more resume, hit send, somebody's going to get back to you. This is now, you are a recruiter for yourself. You're a salesperson and you're selling yourself, and it's going to take more work than you're used to. And it's just best to make sure that work is
Yep,
effective.
you got to be proactive and follow up and cultivate. Don't assume because you hit send that someone's going to get back to you. There's too much competition now, and everything is digital, right? And especially now, and I've said this before, especially these days with so many positions being remote. Once jobs go fully remote, the employer now is literally seeking people all over the country. Your competition has just gone 10x, right? It's not like it was pre-COVID, which most things were geographically centralized. Now you're competing with the whole country. That's why you can see 1,500 applicants on LinkedIn. This is what's going on. And you've got, by the way, multiple generations applying for the same roles. Because we have such a span now. We have early career professionals that sometimes are a little more qualified than they used to be 2 decades ago. And we have more seasoned individuals who are staying in the workforce a lot longer and who are applying for roles that normally would be filled by, let's say, somebody of a more early career. So we've got lots of people applying for the same thing. And especially if it's a remote job. Now, do you see where I'm going with this? You have to plant many more seeds and have many more relationships and do much more cultivation than you had in the past to find that role. But remember too, there is the hidden job market. Over 80% of jobs are hidden from the market. Over 80% of jobs are hidden from the market. They're not on the LinkedIn job board. They're not on Indeed. They're not on Career Builder. They are literally hidden. It's employers who are calling up their emailing, texting, whatever, their friends, their colleagues, and saying, hey, I've got an opening for a director of such and such. Who do you know? Who do you know? That's the hidden market. The more networking you do, the more likely it is that somebody in your network is going to hear about one of those hidden jobs and call you. And guess what? The air is very thin. The competition is very light then because they're not posting. And you know why a lot of employers don't post? Because they get overwhelmed with candidates. Okay. They don't want to get overwhelmed with 1,500 people. They don't have the time for that. So they do this quiet little search and they call their colleagues in their little network, in their professional network. Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Or maybe they'll use a recruiter like me or Alki, whatever, and they'll be networking. But if you're not out there, nobody knows to refer you. That's why I keep saying network with the people who do what you do. Because if I or Alki, if we're recruiting for a director of marketing, okay, what are we doing? Or if the employer will do that same thing. We're looking for we're looking for directors of marketing because we believe in this birds of a feather concept, right? They flock together. We go after directors of marketing. We believe that directors of marketing know other directors of marketing. Okay. So we are assuming that those people are going to refer the same people. That's the mindset of a recruiter. And that's why we keep harping on this. Network with the people who do what you do, right? And do a lot of it because you want to make sure that you're being thought of in the hidden market.
Yeah, two little additions to that. I think I've said this before. The last 3 jobs that I got in my career, I didn't have a clue the jobs even existed.
Right.
People find out what network told me about them. And when someone does what Shira just described, they're actually, when you think of 1,500 or 3,000 applications, they got to weed through all of that. If you go to your network and say, who do you know? You're most likely going to get somebody who, Shira or I tell them something about the job. They are familiar with the job. They're going to reach out to their network, to the people that they believe are qualified. So you actually, as a recruiter or a company recruiting, you actually get a higher quality candidate right from the beginning of the search.
Right. That's right.
Which again makes the search a lot easier for the company, right?
Right. All right, Katie, you've been patient.
Well, I wanted to follow up on the concept of the sales because I'm not a fan of it, but I understand that's what we're doing. And in particular, the cold calling, to expand the metaphor. I was a friend of a friend is a recruiter. I connected with him on LinkedIn, and he sent a job opportunity, a link my way. And it was one that I would never have found on my own because it's not what I've been targeting. But when I read the description, I was like, I could totally do this. It will take a total retool of my resume to do it, and a good cover letter. And then he started sending me links to VPs at this institution. And I was like, do you know these people? And he's like, no, you should reach out to them. And it had never occurred to me to reach out to people at that level without having any connection at all. Like I've been getting traction with, classmates or people that worked at my company.
Right.
Or how, when LinkedIn says, you should email or contact the recruiter directly or the person who posts, like those things I've been doing. But is it okay to reach out to higher ups that have nothing to do with this?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
And what
yes.
would the approach?
Yeah.
What's the
So it depends. So it
approach?
depends. It depends. We can't just give a blanket answer. I mean, yes, in the broad sense of it, but then specifically you have to think about that. So, so it depends. So I'm going to make this up. So let's say the position that you're applying for is a manager level. Okay. I don't know what level you're at, but I'm just making this up. Okay. So it's a manager level role. And you see that there's a vice president there. Part of this has to do with who that, so the VP's name is Mary. Okay. So it depends on what your connection to Mary is. And you're going to find that out on LinkedIn. Likely Mary has a LinkedIn profile. Most people do these days, right? So if Mary is a second level to you, you will have at least one mutual contact.
Okay.
And then you decide what to do. Relationship rules apply with LinkedIn. So Mary is your second level and Fred is your mutual first level connection. Now, you can do one of two things, okay? You can, like I was saying earlier, you can reach out to Fred. Hey, Fred, by the way, Katie, you would want to apply to the job first just to get into their system, okay? So you would reach out to Fred via email. You can do both. You can do a LinkedIn message to Fred, but I would also follow up with an email because you never know which Fred is going to see, to do both. Hey, Fred, hope all's well. I've recently applied for manager X position at Acme Company. And I understand that Mary is the, the vice president, either in that department or she's just a vice president wherever. But I understand you're connected to Mary and Mary works at Acme. Okay. Would you consider forwarding my resume and cover letter to Mary for extra consideration? Okay. Or depending upon if you see either if Mary's the overarching hiring manager, you can say for extra consideration, you could just say, could you forward my resume and cover letter to Mary so that she can get it to the appropriate person? And by the way, Katie, if you have 5 second levels, do all 5. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Squeaky wheel. Okay. Remember, people are busy. There's so much noise. There's so much noise in this online world that we have. You've got to keep birds and wind and rain, right? Like the seeds are going to get plucked. So if you reach out to Mary and reach out to John and reach out to this one and that one, and then eventually, hopefully somebody's going to notice you like, oh, okay, this Katie person. Yes. Okay, great. We'll interview her. That's all you're trying to do is get noticed. And it's okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's not was my original question, but the discussion about networking really helped. So thanks.
Mm-hmm.
My original question was about the situation I find myself in where I'm 60 days in. I really thought, I'm going to give this 3 to 6 months at least before I move on. But I am pretty clear. It's pretty clear to me this is not where I want to be, and it's not healthy. But I also don't want to say that to a potential employer. And if someone says, well, why are you looking? I'm trying to, and I'm just going to test this out here. Like I'm trying to say, well, I've been with this contract for 5 years now. I think it's time for a change. I'm on yes, I just started a new role, but it's the same contract, new contractor. Like, does that fly?
Well, I mean, if that's true, yeah, but I think
that is true.
I think, okay, then that's fine. Let's pretend for a second that just for the sake of everyone on this call, since I'll make it a generic thing. Just for those of you who were a little late in joining us, Katie just got a new job and she's realizing now 60 days in, it's just not the right culture. So Katie, putting aside the fact that the contractor situation, just pretend it was just a regular new job. What I would do is I would talk about the culture. I would just say it wasn't the right fit. You realized quickly after you landed this role that it just wasn't the right fit. And you decided to seek something that's going to be a better fit. And that's very simple. I wouldn't go into detail because you're right. I mean, you don't want to throw, you implied this, you don't want to throw the company into the bus, right? And say, oh, it's a toxic culture. Of course not. You don't say that. But just to say that it's not a right fit, that's a very generic way of saying, oh, I quickly realized it. I think I need to make a pivot here, and people will understand that.
Okay. I guess I'm fearing what about it is not a good fit? Like if you're not a good fit there after 60 days, what's to say you're not going to bail on me after 60 days?
That you're right. People can think that, but I think it's kind of how you say it. Say, I quickly realized this just was not the fit that I thought that it was going to be. You say it kind of like that. People are like, oh, got it. All right. It happens. Okay. People have had that happen. Mm-hmm. But I realized very quickly that this isn't the role that I thought it was going to be for me. The right fit. Yeah. I just say it a couple times. Forget it. Yeah. Because it's not, you're not job hopping. Does that make sense? It's not like, oh, I'm going to leave it. You have to. No. Now people can think that a little bit more if every job that you've left is after a year, that's more the job hoppy thing. Yeah. I've been a year, I'm leaving. Been a year and leaving. I've been there 18 months, I'm leaving. That's job hoppy. 60 days, there's something wrong. No, who leaves a job after 60 days? That's not, people don't do that. You got the job because you want the job. Mm-hmm. An employer's not going to think you're going to leave them after 60 days just because you're leaving this one after 60 days.
And I would assume your resume has other jobs listed where you were there 3 years, 5 years.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't have any other jobs.
This is they'll see it as an anomaly. Yeah. It's a blip.
In college.
Yeah, they'll see it as a blip. Yeah.
And I would highlight that as well. What Vern just pointed out is, and Shira said she gave you the simple thing that you can say, and you can hope that they'll be like, oh, okay, we get it. I will say, the competitive market that we're in, just the last 2 years from what I've seen working in-house, did a couple of contracts for 2 in-house large companies. With it being so competitive, and I'll say that this company had some managers who weren't quite in step with the market and how it's, people's lives and situations and the needs that people have now. So, most of their people have been there 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So they're used to, like, if you move after 2 years, to them, it scares them to death. So there are some people who are going to ask. And so I would say, you can be thinking about a follow-up. You pray, to Shira's point, that they don't. But if they do, if you have a track record, I would say, yeah, you can see on my resume, the places that I've been at, I loved. And even this opportunity, I came in, I asked all the right questions, but it turned out that it wasn't the right fit. And if they ask, you at least have the springboard of your track record to say, well, all right, so I know it's not me, but yeah, I got in, and different than how it normally is for me. Like, this one kind of, just caught me off guard. So I'm looking for an opportunity, but you should be prepared. I will say you should be prepared for follow-up.
Yeah, I had more traction even when my husband was active duty military, and people were wary of military spouses, and to a degree still are. So I'm familiar with that.
You're used to it.
And
Yeah.
I guess that's where my wary feeling comes from. And also because I've never left a job this quickly, or never wanted to leave a job this quickly.
It happens. Like Shira said, it happens. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the feedback.
Had a lot of conversations about networking today. It's good. Good. We need it. We needed one of these deep dives. All right, Lauren, what's on your mind?
So I have an opportunity that is looking good, and it came through someone who I was a classmate who I connected with on LinkedIn, because I'm looking at federal government. He works for the federal government. I'm changing careers. I've been in the private sector. And so I had a meeting with the person who's a director over what they call a directorate. And it was not very interviewee. It was just kind of more like a conversation, because he's in a position to hire, even direct hire, where I wouldn't have to go through USA Jobs. And so he is interested in me, and referred me to speak to someone who is a branch chief, like underneath him, who reports to him. So I'm going to have a meeting with her next week. And my person that referred me and has been just the best unexpected connector. I mean, he has been phenomenal. And he's not even somebody who was a close classmate. He was really somebody kind of, we know each other, but we really don't know each other. But he's ended up being like my best champion, because not only did he connect me to this person, but he connected me to 3 other people within the federal government who, have responded back and offered their time. But anyway, so I have a meeting with her next week, and I sent her, because the thing is, like, I really don't know what I'm interviewing for. And so I messaged her last night, and I was like, oh, I'm really excited to talk with you too. But can you send me, and I know what she does within this directorate, because they do acquisitions. So I thought I was interviewing for like contract specialist. But then my friend was like, well, I don't know if he based upon the fact he wants you to talk to these 2 people, I don't know that he's considering you for the contract specialist role. But I'm just kind of like, well, what do they, because I know that I kind of sense that they're interested in me. And my friend, his name is Marshall. Marshall has told me, because his other friend also works because he used to work on this team. He said, yeah, his friend told him that he wants to hire me, but they're just trying to figure out where you would go. So yeah, I'm just kind of, I'm happy, I'm excited. But I just kind of want to know, like, well, how do I ask? Like, well, what do you all?
And it's a situation like that, you almost want to treat it like an informational interview, because you don't know, you don't have a job description. No one's told you it's going to be blah, 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 blah. I would open up, look, it's going to open up one of 2 ways. Either they're going to ask you to tell me about yourself kind of questions, or ask you very specific, targeted, do you have these skills, or behavioral questions. They'll just interview you, which is fine. But pretty quickly, I would say, hey, John, wonderful to meet you. I was introduced to you by my friend Sally. Can you share with me a little bit about the opportunity that you're considering me for? and get him to start talking first. And to the extent
Okay.
that you can do that, then it's like, oh, okay, now you can tailor your responses. Because in a case
Mhm.
like this, where you don't have a job description, you can tell John, I don't have a job description.
Mhm.
Can we open up with the position you're looking at? Then you'll be able to, if that's I would just be very natural about it. Don't be
Okay.
artificial. Just say, hey, I know you were considering me for different things. What do you got? What do you have in mind? And he might say position A, position B, position C. Oh, okay. What are those positions? What kind of skills are you looking for? And then you'll be able to tailor your responses.
And should I know that because I'm supposed to talk with this woman and possibly somebody else at the same time on Tuesday? So should I ask her via email, like, what position are you considering
Yeah,
me for?
yeah.
Just so,
Well, let
okay.
me ask you this, Lauren. What would prevent you from doing that? What's your hesitation?
Um, I don't know, just kind of sensing, I don't know, just feeling like,
So yeah, so let me say this. I think a lot of job seekers have a hesitant approach when it comes to dealing with employers. Because I think that the general sense out there is that the employer is up here and the job seeker is down here, and we have to, right, be subservient. And that's not
right.
the case.
Balance of power.
They are paying you to do a job. You are equal in this relationship. It may feel like they've got all the control, but they don't. In
Mhm.
fact, to that point, do you know how many employers lose candidates that are their top choice for all kinds of reasons? The candidate says it's not the right fit, it's not the right culture, it's not the right money. Employers are not in control. Employers are
Mhm.
just one side of the relational equation. You are the other. They've got business needs, you've got career needs, they have to match. Okay. The reason why sometimes people feel this way is if they're unemployed. Let's just be very straight about it. Okay. And the employer's, oh, well, you're unemployed. You should be lucky to have this job. Well, you should be blessed to have the job, but that doesn't, just because you're unemployed does not mean that you are subservient. You are still
Mhm.
going to be putting in good work for good pay. You are
Mhm.
both equal. So relationship rules apply. If you need to have a question answered, ask it in a professional, kind way, just like you would anything,
Okay.
right? Just be solid and confident that, you've got something to offer and they've got something to offer, and just make it a match. That's it.
Mhm. Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, you really have to advocate for yourself as a job seeker throughout the whole job search process. You've got to advocate for yourself. And don't you want, the ideal thing is, I want a really good job. So
Right.
I want a job that is a match. So ask questions, push them, get the answers that you
Yeah.
need. Yeah, that's just so important.
Okay.
I find that sometimes the candidates who are the most proactive are the ones that are, feel like they're in the catbird seat. They're gainfully employed. They've been recruited. Oh, the employer wants me. And then they ask all these things and negotiate. Shouldn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
Every job seeker should be in a position to ask the questions that they need. Everybody should. They're just
100%.
as important as they are.
100%. It ties back into networking. So everybody's trying to network to get to this kind of a situation. You now have, the people who are like, all right, we got you here. What do you want to talk about? And one thing, Shira said it well. And if you don't want to include opportunity, another thing you do too, this is kind of like, again, you chase people down, you got these people that you want, you finally have an audience, or they, somebody gets back to you and go, hey, I like to have a conversation, but they don't have a job description or anything like that. A lot of times you can just ask too, hey, looking at my background, what do you see? What do you have in mind? Where do
Oh,
I
I like
fit
that one
in your
too.
organization? What
Yeah.
are you thinking? Let me hear what you're thinking now that you've looked.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that one.
Where would I
Yeah.
be a good fit?
Yeah.
How do you think I could add value? Yep.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Lauren?
And
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And if you get that question, Lauren, then think of an example. Where could you add value? Well, we think you could add value here. If you've got an accomplishment story or something, you could say, well, geez, that fits, here's an example of where I did that in this job or that job, and here were the results I got. That's a great way to answer, to promote your candidacy for whatever they're looking for.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. All right, Diana, what's your question?
You know, I'm gonna pass Shira.
Oh, I apologize. It was Diana Gooberman. I'm so sorry. Diana's had her hand up for a while.
Oh,
I
okay.
forgot there were two
didn't-
You
Dianas
can
on
go
the
ahead,
call.
Yeah,
Dr.
I'm
Diana.
just getting
That's
used to
fine.
the fact that there are two of us, so.
Two of you, right?
And we gotta have a party. So my comment is Shira's right. It's better to go local, not to go remote. I had to learn that was a good idea to go local instead of going remote.
Yeah, it can be very, if you will minimize your competition exponentially these days if you go after remote local jobs. Now, yes, there are more employers that are having people back in hybrid. So we're fine. The pendulum is swinging back to the
Right.
middle. But even so, employers are having a tough time identifying candidates who are willing to work hybrid. They are. Please know that for the record. HR, if we had a bunch of HR people on this call, they would all tell you the same thing. When they post a job that is hybrid or somehow local, very hard for them to find people because most candidates now want to be fully remote, right? So your competition is actually diminished.
And the networking thing works because I was going through my cards and I found actually 2 people from IRC and Catholic Charity. So that was easy than trying to be remote where no one even knows who you are. There you could say I met you this year. And you have, that's actually very helpful to go local instead of going remote. And they would ask, would you come in? Where are you based? I'm like, oh, guys, I'm here 5 minutes away from you. Because it's easier to go local. And for networking, what you said about similar people, it's like they find each other. It's like a party. When you find similar people that do what you do, it's like a party.
By the way, something else about the local thing, bringing the HR perspective in here. I don't know if people realize this. The reason why there are employers who are not, the people who are looking for hybrid workers, the reason why sometimes they're doing that is not only because, hey, they want everybody on site and all of that, but from an HR perspective, they have compliance and tax issues that they need to deal with. When an employer has people who live out of state, there are tax implications, payroll tax implications, insurance implications, all legal, because all the states in the union are different. And it's an administrative hassle for HR people to have people who are all over the country. Okay. In fact, there are some states they won't even touch because the laws are just too crazy for them. The point is that this is a challenge for HR. And sometimes they just have to make that difficult decision. In fact, I have a client I just worked with. They're DC based. The jobs that they have are remote. However, you have to live in the DC region. Number one, because they want to have monthly meetings with people just for team building. And number two, insurance. Their particular health insurance is only DMV. In fact, it's a specific area within the DMV. It's not even like Gainesville. It's like close into the center. Right?
What's DMV?
DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Okay, makes sense because I've never heard anybody say DMV.
Yeah, DMV is another term for DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And so they need people who are close to the region, right? But I didn't know that until I was like, well, why are you? Do you see what I mean? There are a lot of implications in the back end that we're just not even aware of. So just be aware of that. Okay.
And it's way easier with local. They're like, would you take a freelance assignment? I'm like, guys, I would take any assignment from you guys that you're even considering me because the remote places were like, well, you need to have VRI. I'm like, what's VRI? I'm like, oh, because they use abbreviations. You have to know what the abbreviations mean because then you're an insider if you know their abbreviations. Because if you don't know abbreviations, then you don't know what they're talking about. Because it's easier to do local. I didn't realize that was much easier than trying to apply for more interpreter jobs than I could even keep track of.
Local stuff. Alki?
It's funny because I 100% echo what Shira just said. To that point, it made me think of something else that I've told job seekers before as well. This mixes up the salad a little bit, but keep in mind what Shira just said as number one. That's true. On the other hand, if you find yourself at wit's end saying, I've applied for every job out there, nobody's calling me back, I don't know what to do next, and you want a brand new project, and we've been talking today about projects and you guys putting in the effort on your own. If you want a little side project, go look at jobs that are not remote, that may be a town or two over. Make a list of jobs that you can do that fit you as well. Look up and down the job description to really say, okay, I can do this job. My experience matches. I'm totally qualified. I have a good feeling about this. You're nowhere near 100% that this is going to work. To Shira's point that she just said, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be a no. Doesn't hurt to make a list and call and go, hey, I see this job. I assume it's not remote or hybrid, but here's my resume. Take a look. If I match, would you consider, or even if you don't send your resume, you can ask. It doesn't hurt to call people and ask. This is a local job. Would you consider someone remote? That opens up, like, again, for you all who feel like I'm stagnant, I've been looking in my area and I've been looking at a few remote places. I'm shot. I'm done. Well, there's 50 states. You can go pick any state and pull up a list of those jobs if you want as a side project. Again, be prepared for a million no's, but doesn't hurt if you feel like I've done everything that I can do. Doesn't hurt to do that type of sales stuff.
In fact, just to Alki's point, again, walk a mile in HR shoes. They are looking for a unicorn candidate. Or sometimes we call them a purple squirrel, right? Somebody who's got sort of every box check. If you happen to be one of those people and you really check all of their boxes and you are remote and they're looking for hybrid, reach out anyway. It could be that they make an exception for you because your background is so spot on. Sometimes they are willing to make a change, make an exception if they get the person who is absolutely what they're looking for. But you have to be exactly what they're looking for.
You do. And also, if you see on LinkedIn or wherever this job's been posted for 180 days, there's a chance they're still looking and can't find what they want.
That's the unicorn.
I've been that guy who has jobs, and it's like, it may not even be me. I may have presented candidates, but it's the hiring manager who's just not finding what they're looking for. And as time stretches out, sometimes they get more desperate and they're like, okay, now we're meeting again about this position. My higher ups are asking me, when am I going to get this role filled? It's costing us time. My other people are having to duplicate to cover the work. We've got to find somebody. Okay, we'll consider opening that up. That has happened a bunch of times with recruitments that I've recruited for. And as Shira said, and I said, if you check the boxes, they might be willing to consider. If you don't check the boxes, they're going to look at you and just say, why are you wasting our time?
And to that point, this is probably a good time to pivot onto a related, right, category. And that is, how do you align yourself with the role? How do you vet the opportunity to make sure that you are a good fit? You know, a lot of both recruiters and job seekers tend to do this because we're all human beings, okay? We have this thing called selective perception. It's a psychological term. We see what we want to see. So so in the case of a job seeker, right, you're looking down a job description, you're like, oh, I can do bullet 1 and 5 and 7 and 9 and 10. And you suddenly say to yourself, oh, well, this is my job. Well, it very well may be that you're qualified, but maybe you're not as qualified as what they want you to be. And so one of the things that's very, very important to do is look at the qualification section, really analyze it, see what they are asking for. And that is both the skills that they're looking for, the industry experience that they say that they want, even if they say industry X is preferred, they kind of mean required. The years of experience. Now, I've realized that nobody's supposed to be discriminating based on age. That is illegal, okay? At the same time, what employers will often do is they will have in mind sort of a stage of career, let's put it that way, where they'll say, you know, for this role, we believe that the person is probably going to be at X stage. Now, should they be open to all kinds of levels? Yes, for sure. But understand that if you are, for example, a very seasoned individual and you are applying for something that's more entry level, you find it's absolutely fine to apply, and maybe they will be very open-minded and consider, but understand the risk side from their perspective. It's not an age thing for them. What it is their perception that the person is going to be overqualified, and overqualified to them means that they feel that the person is going to be bored in the job. They feel that person who's got a lot of experience is going to come in and say, I could do this one hand tied behind my back, right? And that person is going to leave very quickly because they're not going to be challenged and fulfilled. That's the perception, right? And so you've got to overcome that somehow. And hopefully you get an interview and you're able to do that, but understand you've got to manage your own expectations, because that's often what the employer is thinking. They're trying to mitigate their risk. And the same thing is true on the other side. If you don't have enough experience, they're thinking, oh, the person's going to have too much of a learning curve. Same thing. Everybody's trying to find that beautiful balance right there in the middle, that sweet spot of the person who's not going to be underqualified, not overqualified, kind of in the middle. Should people be expansive? Yes. Are you open? Should you apply? Sure. But if you do apply to something that's not quite the fit on paper, understand that they might be in their risk averse mode and they may or may not consider you. All the more reason why it's important to get an internal champion if you can. If you have somebody that can go and wave your resume around and say, no, I know the job description said X, but you've got to consider Mary, my friend, because she is terrific. Just give her an interview. Just give her a chance. Maybe they're going to have an open mind and say, oh, okay. Yeah. For you. Yeah. Well, we're open to me. But if all they see is a piece of paper, all they see is your resume, they may not be that open. But having an internal champion sometimes can push things along.
Because that again goes to what Shira says all the time, employers trying to minimize their risk. If Shira is the hiring manager and Shira and I have this great relationship, and I go to Shira, you really should talk to Susie. Shira, trust me because we have this relationship and there's more, if I'm saying this person's really qualified or that, you really should talk to her for these following reasons, Shira is more likely to, like she just said, grant an interview to that person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Relationship rules apply for sure. All right. Other thoughts? Other questions? Or Alki or Vern, any tips from the trenches here?
I'm trying to find out how we can stretch this particular call out another hour. This is good stuff today because
Yeah.
we say networking so much on this call, but breaking it down a little bit more. And again, the paradigm shift of putting yourself in our seat. And I think I've talked to a couple of people on this call about one project that I'm working on. I'm excited about it because there's a lot of like a lot of job seekers don't have this information. This is golden, this is golden that we're talking about today. But the paradigm shift, I think, is the most important thing. Is job searching is proactive, sales, research, phone calls. It's the stuff you really don't want to do because you think, what are you talking about, Alki? I've got a resume. I submitted it and they better get back to me.
That's right.
Doesn't work that way anymore.
Nope.
I mean, you can do that too, but the return, the response and hearing something back, finding out, is it working, as opposed to getting more and more frustrated by, you know what? I've sent 15 resumes out into the black hole and I'm getting nothing back. Where are my resumes? What's happening? Somebody stole my resume. What's happening to it? It's the paradigm shift.
And it also depends on how much competition there is even in your field. So for example, we don't normally get a whole lot of IT people on this call. We had for a period, we had a few people, okay? But we don't normally get a lot of IT people. IT people, certain types of IT people are very in demand, okay? There are some IT people there that have recruiters calling them all the time. I mean, bombarding them right on LinkedIn, because there are some professions that are in demand and some professions that are not as much in demand, or some professions that just have a lot of competition, right? Or some kind of companies that have a lot of competition because they're very popular to work for whatever, right? And everybody's applying to that company. Guess what? That employer is going to be overwhelmed with probably some really, really good candidates. But then there are some other companies that are really small, no name, nobody knows about them, and they're just desperate to find people, and they don't even know how to find candidates, right? So you have to understand it's not only about your side of it, it's their side too. How popular is that job? How unpopular is that job? How well recognized is the company or unwell recognized? Is it a remote job? Is it a local job? What's the level of position? There are a lot of different factors you got to consider when you are applying to think to yourself, to what extent am I going to be attractive to that employer? You got to walk a mile in their shoes. And that's why this whole idea of farming, plant seeds, plant, relationship building. It's not a matter of focusing on that one job. What's going on with that one job? That one job that you've applied for, even if you've tried to find an internal change, It is one seed in the soil. One. You need a ton of them. A ton. If you're going to be proactive like that, you can't be thinking about, let me just go harp after that one job and multiple seeds. It is one seed in your soil. Okay. Do what you can, but then go on to the next seed. A lot of relationship building is important.
So let me offer this up to the group. I did a presentation yesterday with a biotech firm where 38 people took the Contacts Count networking competency assessment. Their average score was 61. Okay. And if you want to get a quick insight into your networking skills, my email is in the chat. Send me, I want to take your assessment and I'll send you the link and you can take it and you'll immediately, as soon as you finish it, get a 12-page report that'll give you some feedback on your networking skills.
Going back to real quick too, because I know we're closing real quick to what Shira said about the one seed. You are also one of seemingly a million other applicants.
Yeah.
So on the sales side of things, why are you different? Why should you stand out? So me, as a recruiter who has posted a job and then looked up, 7 days later, 11 days later, and go, all right, let me check out this job that I posted and see how it's doing. What, 250 applicants? So right away, I'm like, I'm not looking at 250 applicants. And the way that I recruit in a situation like that, when I have a posted job, I'm like, I'm not even looking at 12. I'm hoping that it's 7. I'm hoping that it's the first 7. Doesn't always work out that way. But I'm telling you from the mind of a recruiter, 250 applied. I honestly only want to present 1, 2, 3. I only want to present 1, 2, 3 who fit, who match, and who stand out from other people. So if you are, let's just say, I'm going to pick on Diana B for a second. If you're a content, creator or writer, and it's a content, based role, and there's 100 other content creators who applied, as a recruiter, I'm like, all right, 100 or let me stick with my 250 content writers here. I want the best. I want the ones who applied first. I want the matches, the most qualified, the ones who fit to a T. And then when I get that group, that's like the first 5 or 6. I move them off to the side. What I do next in that group is, now who stands out? There's still all these other people over here that I might not even ever look at. But if you happen to be in that group that I pick out, the first question I'm asking myself is, all right, I've got 5 candidates. I'm not presenting 5 to the hiring manager. I'm presenting the ones who stand out, who qualify and who stand out. What makes you stand out from the others? Why are you special? You need to answer that in your resume, your elevator speech. And when you get these opportunities, they get content creators, or they get people who do what you do all the time. They want the ones who stand out and give them value to replace the person they lost. Or if it's a new position, who's going to do the most incredible things, be the most incredible employee for them. As you write your resumes, edit your resumes, talk to people, interview, be thinking about why you stand out. Because again, there's 800 candy bars in the store. People are going for certain specific things, and you need to stand out. Why are you different than all the other candy bars?
It's absolutely true, Aki. Thank you for sharing that. The employer employers are overwhelmed these days. They just are. They've got more candidates they know what to do with in some regard. Now, sometimes not. Like in IT, like there's like that specialty where they can hardly find the unicorn person. So you've got to really manage your expectations. When you are applying, understand that there's likely going to be a ton of competition. Manage your expectations. Alki, Vern, and I, like I said, we're self-employed. There's a difference when somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, Shira, Alki, Vern, I want to work with you because I got referred to you." Fine. It's a completely different thing when someone says, "Hey, I want you to complete this RFP, this request for proposal. And by the way, you've got 25 other companies that you're competing with. Now we've got a 1 in 25 chance." The analogy that I think is important here too, instead of just the seed planning, is the Olympics. You are now in the Olympics. Why does somebody get the gold? In fact, how does somebody even make it to the Olympics? There are a million amazing athletes out there who all could. What is it? It's that ice skater that does the quadruple toe loop, right? As opposed to the one that does the triple. The one that does the triple is an amazing athlete, but the one that does the quad is what they're looking for now in the ice skating championships, right? So you don't know your competition. You don't know the other athletes that are competing with you for that spot. That's why you have the standing out thing that Alki's talking about is so important. We've talked about this before, tailoring your resume to the role is vital, absolutely vital. Using their key terms in ways that are right at the top of the resume, down, labeled next to your accomplishment stories, keyword, 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 keyword. It's one of the ways that at least on paper, you can stand out. Because if you send a generic looking resume, they're going to see you as a generic candidate. And you don't want to be a generic candidate. They got 250 generic candidates. In fact, they've got 250 people who have new business applying who don't have the qualifications, who are just sort of like spamming them with resumes, which means they have all these other this stuff to look through. And so you've got to be the one that says, I've read what you want. Here's what you need. And here's what I have. And that's going to help you stand out. But again, remember, it's the Olympics. So hope this has been helpful today. Look forward to seeing you, for those of you who can make it tomorrow morning, to the relationship little seminar that Vern and I are going to be on a panel with, or the resume and LinkedIn seminar I'm going to be doing on the 18th. It's all in the chat. And we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. And for those who want to stay on for the prayer call, you are certainly more than welcome. All right? So wish everybody a blessed day.